Hey guys, Bright Lights here, and welcome to Great Nature Standard Deck Profile. Now, Great Nature, in my opinion, is one of the most diverse decks in Standard, just because it has multiple ways of being built and played. There's the Hammuske Leopard build, there's the Bison Leopard build, and they can both play a variety of different units, trigger lineup. It's quite different, which is what I felt Standard was lacking in terms of deck choice. So I'm actually quite excited to be playing Great Nature. It's actually a lot of fun. So this build, as you can see, is the Hammuske build. It will be Hammuske Leopard. So for the starter, obviously, we are playing the V starter that everyone plays. When you ride it, you draw one. Next up, we're playing 4 Hammuske, Pencil Hero Hammuske. So he has XL, as most grade 3s do in XL clans. And when he is placed, if you have the grade 1 and grade 2 Hammuske in your soul, you can discard 2 and then get an additional XL circle, and then you can call a grade 1 and grade 2 from your deck. Now this card is good, especially against the non-force matchups, because then you just get to punch them down really fast with decent numbers. And getting both of them onto the XL circles, because of the timing, you get the XL circle and then you call, you get 2 22k attackers minimum. And so he's really good on that initial ride. But once that initial ride is over, he's kind of like a dead card. You're not really going to use it more than once, because you're most likely going to be out of copies of the grade 1 and grade 2. On top of that, I very rarely like discarding 2 cards to get an XL circle. It's good. 2 cards, you still call out 2 units to get a free XL circle. But sometimes the cards in my hand are just really full of triggers. Don't want to discard it because they're shield, essentially. But Hammuske is definitely a good card, and he's a lot more fun than Bison because it's a bit more random on if you can pull it off or not. And I think that's part of the appeal of Great Nature, is that you can't guarantee your effects. So next up, we're playing 4 School Hunter Leopard. So his main skill is when he's placed, you can mill the top card of your deck, and if it's a normal unit, you get to look at the top 4 cards of your deck, call 2 grade 2 or lower units to rearguard circle, then shuffle. And if you mill a trigger unit, instead Leopard gets 15k and a crit. And then his second effect is, if you have a grade 3 in soul, you do the mill thing twice. So Leopard is probably one of the best VRs ever, in my opinion, if you can get him properly, because his recovery as a top deck is so immense. Getting 2 free cards just by riding is really crazy. And since you're going to make an XL circle, you can get a potential 4 free cards onto your field. And that is crazy. And they're all going to hit nice numbers because you're making XL circles. Admittedly, his milling trigger effect isn't as good against things like Protect, but it has come in handy quite a few times. He's a great recovery card and definitely should be playing 4 of. Now, that's it for grade 3s. I'm not playing Bison in the Hammuske build. That is another build entirely. I don't like mixing the two, because the way I see it is you want to ride either Hammuske or Bison and then immediately keep on riding Leopard. You don't want to go any further than that. And so the extra copies sort of become dead. You don't want to ride Hammuske, then ride Bison, then ride Leopard, because by then the game's pretty much over. And it's not so value if you do that. Your momentum is really slowing down. So 4 Leopard, 4 Hammuske for this build. I will go over a Bison build at the end of this video, but I'm just playing the 8 grade 3s in this build. Next up for grade 2s, obviously we're playing 4 Pencil Knight Hammuske. So what he does is, if you have the grade 3 as your vanguard, the grade 3 Hammuske as your vanguard, he gets plus 3k permanently, not just during your turn. So he's a 12k beat stick on your opponent's turn and your turn. And on XL circles, he becomes 22, which is really good against non-force matchups. And since you need him in your soul, and this is the only way of getting him into your soul is by riding him, you gotta play 4 of, and that's about it. His second effect isn't as good. The Vanguard only effect, and during the battle that he attacks, if you have the grade 1 Hammuske in your soul, he gets 5k. It's not bad, but not amazing. I actually like his first effect more, just because it's a permanent 12k that can hit pretty decent numbers. So yeah, next up for the grade 2s, we are playing 4 Binoculars Tigers. Probably the MVP in most of the builds, 4 of in every one. So his effect is Vanguard or Rearguard Circle. When he attacks a Vanguard, you can counterblast 1, and then you mill the top card of your deck. And then if it's a normal unit, you get to draw a card. And if it's a trigger unit, you get to retire any one of your opponent's rearguard and pump 3 units in your front row by 5k. This card is amazing. The fact that you get to draw a card in an Excel land is crazy. It's crazy. It's conditional drawing, yes. But the fact that you get a chance to draw is just crazy. It's just like, it helps you build so much advantage. It's a bit more random than most draws like OTT or something. But it is such a really good card. And then the retire is not bad because it can also hit their back row. And you don't have to hit their front row. So I really like Binoculars Tiger. He's probably one of my favorite cards in this deck of this version. Next up, we're playing 3 Barcode Zebra. I was tossing up between this one or like the white rabbit thingy that you can Soul Blast when it hits to draw, but it's like 8k. I didn't really like it. I felt Zebra gave me more power. So what Zebra does is when you mill a card from your deck, he gets 5k to end a turn, and that can stack. So if you mill 2 cards, you get 10k. If you mill 3 cards, 15k. And sometimes I have milled up to 3 to 4 cards a turn, and it becomes huge. You don't need him on an Excel circle. That's what I really like about him. He can hit numbers without needing to sit on an Excel circle, which I really like about him. Playing 3 of him, I would play 4 if I had space, but Binoculars is too good, and you gotta play 4 of the grade 2 Hammuske, just for consistency of getting the grade 3. So yeah, that's it for grade 2s. Next up for grade 1s, obviously, Hammuske. You gotta play 4 grade 1 Hammuskes. So his effect is essentially the same as the grade 2 one. Continuous, while he is on Rearguard Circle, if you have the grade 3 as your Vanguard, he becomes 12k. He gets 4k, so he's a 12k beater as well. So that's really good because that means if he's on an Excel circle, he's hitting 22, and 22 against non-force matchups means 15k shield. And that's pretty impressive. And then his other effect is what makes him pretty consistent, because this just means you don't need to ride the grade 1 followed by the grade 2, because he puts himself into soul. So at the end of your turn, you can Soul Blast 1 and move this little guy into the soul. Then you can search your deck for up to 1 of the grade 2, put it to your hand, and shuffle. So what this means is, as long as you open this guy and another grade 1, along with the grade 3, you should have it, which is pretty consistent in its own. It's not the best consistency, but it's still pretty consistent. The grade 1 does help guarantee the grade 2, but if you don't open up the grade 1 on your first turn, you can still sneak him into soul, which is what I really like, which is what the grade 2 can't do. So once again, 4 of the grade 1s, because it helps reach your 4 of the grade 2s, which helps, helps you to actually pull off the combo. Next up, for Monoculus Tigers, he's really good. The sole reason that he mills a card to help with Zebra, and in some situations, restricting them to only triggers is pretty good. So basically, what he does is when he attacks, or when he boosts a rear guard, you can Soul Blast 1 to mill the top card of your deck, and if it's a normal unit, your opponent can't call Sentinels, and if it's a trigger unit, your opponent can only call trigger units. So basically what this means is, if you use this guy's effect, your opponent can't ever use a protect marker against it, because you can't call Sentinels if it's a normal, and they have to call triggers if it's a trigger. So he's pretty good at putting conditioning under your opponent. So yeah, it's a bit of a, ooh, make sure you don't get caught out by this. But yeah, he's a pretty cool card. I like him. He's 8k, which is really good. And yeah. Next up, playing 4 Tank Mouse. He's so good. This card's amazing. So what he does is, when your card's put into your drop zone, you can counterblast 1. Or when your card's put into drop zone from deck, so when you mill a card, you can counterblast 1 and return that card to your hand. This is selective card draw in Excel. Yes, he's 6k. Yeah, he's counterblast 1. But with the grade 1 Hammuske, or the grade 2 Hammuske, and with this guy behind them, that's 18. That's pretty good numbers already. And then Excel already makes all the units basically better, because they make it 16k or something, which isn't the best, but it's okay. But the advantages you can get off this guy is absolutely insane. With Leopold, what you can do, if you have another grade 3 in soul with Leopold, is you can mill 1. This goes on standby, and then you mill the second one, and then you can choose if you want the second card or the first card to get back of Tank Mouse. So that's what I mean by selective. There is like, or like with if you have binoculars alongside Molecule, if you use both of their skills in the same battle, you get to actually choose which card you want to take back of Tank Mouse. You don't have to do it alongside the same thing because they're both at the same time when it attacks, when it boosts. So selective card draw in Great Nature alongside Binoculus's card draw in itself is really impressive that they can actually keep hand. Like, I've had games where I've actually had a decent hand while playing other Exile clans. I've had no hand. And so that's why Tank Mouse, staple 4 of, despite him being 6k once per turn, he is just that good of a card. Next up for the last of the grade 1s, we're playing 2 Triad Dogs. I'm only sort of playing him because he's 9k. So, because 9k plus Tank Mouse is 17, so that I'm bad at maths. Tank Mouse, okay, Triad Dog plus any 8k attacker means it's going to hit 17, which is pretty good. Most of your things are at least 8k, so it's not bad. And also, riding him on your first turn, not too bad, it's okay. Hitting 19 by himself, also not too bad on Excel circles. Honestly, I might just replace him with Sea Otter once I get the promos, because Shadow matchup is a bit annoying, but for now, Triad Dog is actually really good. I like him a lot. Next up for triggers. I've mentioned this before, that it doesn't really matter what triggers you play in Great Nature. It's sort of all personal preference. You can play 8 crit, no fronts, and it'll be fine. You can play 4 crit, 4 front. You could play 8 front, and I've tried all of them, and they all seem to work pretty decently. But my personal one is this one. So I like to play 3 crits. 3 crits, 5 front. Oop, that's not front. 4 draw, and 4 heals. This is the one I personally like. There's a lot of different variants of this trigger ratio. You can, like I said, you can try different ones that you like. But I personally like this one. It works for me in my playstyle. And as long as you know what your trigger ratio is in the deck, you can just change how you play it slightly. Like, you know to attack with Vanguard first if you're playing more fronts. You know to attack with a rear last if you're attacking with crits. And so yeah, trigger ratios, I really like it because it's diverse. But this is the one that works for me. So yeah, that's it for this deck profile. I'm just going to cut, and hopefully I'll do this right, and it'll show you the Bison build, and I can explain the Bison build. So if you just hold on for a second. So this is the Bison build that I personally use. As you can see, it's not too different from the Hammuske build. It's mostly just replacing Hammuskes with Bison, Grade 2 Hammuske with Geograph, and Grade 1 Hammuske with Silver Wolf. So the reason why is because every other card in the deck is already good enough on its own, and basically you're just trying to get the same sort of effects from Hammuske, but with Bison. So I'll just go with what Silver Wolf does first because it's the easiest. So Silver Wolf's skill is quite simple. If it's in the back row, it becomes a 12k. So that's sort of like trying to imitate this guy, which is if you have the Grade 3 Hammuske, he's 12k. Yes, it's more conditional because it has to be in back row, so he's forced to be a booster. But 1, he's 8k, which is what I like. And 2, having a 12k booster means that all your things are going to be hitting pretty decently, because it makes your 12k with your Tank Mouse 18k columns, which is pretty good. Everything else is minimum, I believe, 21k, or 20 to 21k, which isn't too amazing, but I mean, it's good enough for me. Like, everything will hit at least 17, which means at least a 10k guard from everything. So yeah. Next up is Geograph Giant, which is this grade 2 here. So his effect is, while he is on an additional rearguard circle, he gets 8k, which means he's 17k. Note it doesn't say during your turn. This guy, if he's on an Excel circle, is 17k during both players' turn, which is nuts. He's 27k on your turn, which means it needs 20k guard from non-forced clans to guard. 20k guard from one attack is absolutely crazy, because, you know, they might not have that heal in hand. They might need to drop 2 cards for it. So Geograph Giant, staple 4 of. People forget all the time it actually gains passive power. So like the Grade 2 Hammuske, he's a bit easier to get, but he just needs to be on Excel. But I mean, it's not too hard. So they both hit really good numbers, and he's just replacing this guy. Next up is Bison. Bison, in my opinion, is probably the more consistent version because you don't have to open the perfect like grade 1, grade 2, or like at least a grade 1 to search the grade 3. You don't need to open it. But so Bison, what he does is if he's on Vanguard or Rearguard Circle, when he attacks in Counterblast 1, choose another of your Rearguards and it gets 5k. And the most important part, if Bison is on your Vanguard Circle, you stand that Rearguard. You barely ever use Bison's effect while he's on Rearguard Circle because it eats up Counterblast. But what happens is you attack with Geograph Giant on your Excel Circle for 27. Then you attack with Bison. Use its skill to restand the Geograph. That means it's now 32k on your Geograph column, which means it needs 25k shield against non-Force clans. 25k shield from one card before any triggers is amazing. And note, Bison doesn't say when he attacks a Vanguard. You can attack with Geograph, your opponent can get a trigger, then you can swing at a Rearguard with Bison, still get its effect off, stand Geograph, and demand more cards from your opponent. So I like Bison better because it just applies more pressure. And like, let's say I need an additional binoculars for the extra 5k for Zebra, or an extra monoculus attack, or an extra attack. It nets you another attack, which is what I really like about Bison. Because otherwise, I feel the deck sort of struggles a little bit against protect if it's the Hammuske version. Just a little bit. Because it doesn't multi-attack. Bison allows the deck to multi-attack a bit more consistently to hit for better numbers. So I really like the Bison build a little bit better, but Hammuske is more fun, definitely. Triggers, like I said just now, you can play whatever you want. I'm just playing the same one. 3 crit, 5 front, 4 draw, 4 heal. It works for me, so I'm going to continue playing it. Just realized that's the wrong way, but doesn't matter. So yeah, this is Great Nature, or Gacha Nature as I like to call it, because it's a bit more RNG than other decks. You can't really predict what's going to happen just because the card effect changes every game. So yeah, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.